Hello, and welcome to the Worldly Podcast. And today we'll be taking a deep dive into England's upcoming World Cup. Picking a World Cup squad is easy when you don't have enough talent. When England's problem in 2026 is the opposite. Tuchel has had to leave genuinely world-class players at home. So what does his final 26 tell us about how he actually plans to win this thing? England might have the most scrutinized World Cup team in history. Every roster decision becomes a national debate. And now with Thomas Tuchel in charge, that debate has changed completely because unlike previous England managers, Tuchel doesn't appear obsessed with star power or reputation. He's picking players based on tactical fit. And that sounds simple until huge names start missing out. For American sports fans, imagine an NFL coach saying, I don't care about Pro Bowls. I care whether this guy fits my system. That's essentially what Thomas Tuchel is doing with England. And honestly, it might be exactly what the team needed. Under Gareth Southgate, England consistently went deep in tournaments. Final in Euro 2020, quarterfinals in the 2022 World Cup, final again at Euro 2024. But critics argued England often looked cautious, talented, but too rigid. Tuchel's history suggests otherwise. At clubs like Chelsea and Paris Saint-Germain, Tuchel built teams around structure, pressing, and tactical flexibility. His systems are demanding. Players have to understand spacing, defensive rotations, and movement off the ball. That's why England's squad selections suddenly look less like a popularity contest and more like a puzzle. The biggest clue is formation. Tuchel has frequently preferred a back three, usually something like a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3, or a system that includes one fullback going high while the other drops along the other two center backs. That system depends heavily on wingbacks, aggressive pressing, and defenders who are comfortable carrying the ball forward. So instead of asking, who are England's most famous players? The better question becomes, who actually works in this setup? That's where some of the controversial choices pop up. Certain players may not be global superstars, but they understand positional discipline. They track runners, they press correctly, they can transition quickly between defense and attack. Meanwhile, some bigger names, especially attack-minded players who prefer freedom, may not fit as naturally. And we've already seen hints of this in Tuchel's previous teams. When Chelsea won the Champions League in 2021, Tuchel didn't necessarily field the most individually talented lineup in Europe, but tactically they were incredibly organized. They shut down elite teams like Manchester City by controlling space and defensive transitions. That's the blueprint England appear to be chasing. Now, there are obvious positives here. England's squad is loaded with athleticism and depth. Players like Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, and Declan Rice can thrive in a high-intensity system. And tactically, England may look finally proactive against elite opponents instead of reactive. But there's also a risk. Systems that dominate qualification matches don't always survive the knockout tournaments. That's the major question surrounding Thomas Tuchel. Can this tactical structure hold up against the very best teams in the world? Because it's one thing to control possession against a mid-tier European side. It's another thing entirely against nations like France, Argentina, Brazil, where individual brilliance can break systems apart. And some of Tuchel's selections may look smart in theory, but could still struggle physically or defensively against top-level tournament pressure. That's what makes this England team fascinating. For years, England relied heavily on talent and emotional momentum. Now they may become one of the most tactically engineered teams in international football. And if it works, England could finally win its major trophy since the 1966 World Cup. But if it fails, the criticism will be brutal because leaving out famous names is only forgiven when you win. That's the gamble Thomas Tuchel appears willing to make. And honestly, that gamble might give England its highest ceiling in years. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.